Welcome back everybody, this is Vice back with another video on the channel. This is going to be a second video in the series of Nest.js. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to use MongoDB with Nest.js. MongoDB is a database, NoSQL database, and Nest.js is a JavaScript, basically Node.js framework for building APIs for your mobile application or for web applications. So one of the most important things when you're building API is to store the data into a database, whether it's Postgres, MySQL, MongoDB, or any other database. So this video is going to teach you how to use MongoDB with Nest.js. We will create an endpoint which will help us to store data into MongoDB. And Nest.js is pretty easy and pretty straightforward when it comes to MongoDB. It has a separate MongoDB module which we will be using to interact with MongoDB using Nest.js. I'm going to be using Docker to run MongoDB server and set up a database there. So without further ado, let's get started. To be able to use Nest.js, you need to install Nest.js CLI, which will help you to create a project. So if you have installed Nest.js, you should be able to use this nest command. I'm going to type version, and you'll see we have this Nest.js CLI installed 7.5.4. Alright, so I can use Nest.js command to create a new project. A new project, just use nest command with a new keyword and then type the name of the project. So I'll just say tutorial. Enter, and this will create all these files for us, and also it's asking us to which package manager. So I will use npm, and it's going to install all the packages that are required for this initial Nest.js project. So let's wait for that to finish installing. Okay, so the project is ready. I'm going to type code and tutorial. This will open up a new window for VS Code, and I'm going to close this window. So let's close it, and then I'm going to use this window now. Alright, so I'm gonna just close this terminal as well. Now we're in VS Code. I can open an integrated terminal in VS Code, and all of these files are created for us. So to be able to use Nest.js, we need to install two packages. We need to install Nest.js/mongoose package and a mongoose package. So I will go ahead and then paste this command. And the command is basically npm install --save nest.js/mongoose and mongoose. I will press enter, and this is going to install these two packages. These two packages are installed, and we can see we got this Nest.js/mongoose and a mongoose package installed. Let's go to app module, and we are going to implement mongoose module. So in imports, I'm going to start typing mongoose module, and that is going to help us to import directly from Nest.js mongoose package. And after that, we are going to use a function called for root. Within this, we are going to specify the URL for our MongoDB server. This is the Raspberry Pi that is serving MongoDB server on my local network. And you can see by using show dbs command, it's showing me all these DBs which are running on this server. So we're going to go and connect to this server. I'm going to specify the URL for that server that I just showed you, which is running on my local network, and I'm going to type /nest, which will be the name of our database. If you look at this file explorer, you have app controller. We also have app service, which is returning this hello world. Well, this is a string which is hard-coded here in the code, but what we will do is we will store our data to database and then retrieve it. You can also create a schema of that using mongoose package. So we will basically create a separate library. Let me give you an example, okay? For example, we are going to create a new library which will help us to store the versions of application. And we will just say version name for a library. So to be able to create a library, we just say nest g library, enter. It will ask you the name for a library, and I will just say version. Prefix will just say app, and now you'll see you have a lib folder here, and within the lib folder we have a library called version, and we got the source folder which has some files for us. So I'm going to go and add input, and I'm going to use Mongo's module, but instead of for root, we're going to use for feature. And for feature, we are going to require a name and then the schema, create a new file. And that would be version.schema.ts. So what I'll have here is prop schema factory from Mongo's package, and then this document from Mongo's package. So first of all, when you're going to create a schema, you have to use schema decorator. Alright, now version interface doesn't exist, so we'll just go and create a new file. I'll say version.interface.ts file. So that's going to be our version interface. It's going to have a name, app version, API version, and created date. We're going to use a decorator. That would be a prop. And this will basically take an object. And here we got some options for our property. Well, we're just going to type required to true for now. All right, and I'm going to use name. Type is going to be string, because we have 4 things that we need to make sure that we got app version, API version, and then created date. So change this to app version, and this will have API version, and then let's say we got this created date. All right, and then there are some types as well. So that's a date type and all to string. So we'll just have to change that to date type. Export this class or type export. Just create a const. I'll say version schema equal to. We're going to use this schema factory. Create for class function. We're going to use this version schema file into our version.service.ts file. Within this file, first of all, let's create a constructor function. Within the constructor function, I'm going to use this inject a model decorator. Create a private variable, which is going to be, let's say, version model. And type would be model, which we import from Mongo's package, and type would be version. So we've injected our version schema in service file. Let's go and create 2 functions. So first of all, we're going to use add a version function, which is going to take a version. We'll just say version interface. That's going to be type, and it's going to return promise version interface. Right, that's going to be first function, and then second function that we need to create would be current version. Okay, and that will return the current version that we've stored. Now, these 2 errors are because we're not returning any promise so far. So what I'll do here, I will use promise.resolve for now to get rid of error, and we'll just say as version interface, and that will for now resolve an error. We're going to create a controller file for version module as well. Right click, I'm going to name it version.controller. .ts. To be able to create a controller, we need to use this controller decorator from Nest.js common package, and that will take a prefix. So we'll just use a prefix of version. Next, we are going to export class, which we will name version controller. We're going to use a constructor function, and that will take a private variable of version service, and we're going to import version service. I would like to use lowercase v for the name. Next, we are going to create two functions because this is a controller. We need to define the type of our API as well. First of all, we are going to create a GET request, which will return the current version stored in database. So I'll use this GET, and the path would be current. I'm going to use the async function. I'll say GET current version, and we can have this request object. So let's grab that rec variable name be just request, and that can return promise version interface. We're gonna do return this dot version service dot current version. And because that current version is returning its promise to resolve this empty object as version interface, this will not cause a TypeScript to cause a problem. Now we need also a post request. So type post, and we will do a prefix for that release version. Let's create an async function. I'll name a function add version, and we'll use this request object. And this can also return version interface if you're really strongly. Let's do just RAQ. Now this will return this dot version service dot add version, and we are going to use this RAQ object dot body as a body for our request object. So right now we pretty much got a controller ready. We have interface, service, schema. Now we're gonna go to service, and this add version function has to have this functionality. So we got this version model variable. I'm going to create a cons. We'll just name it we new this dot version model, and that would be version. And that's the version that we expected from request.body. So we created a new version from this version model. Once done, then we just say we dot created date, which is going to be the property for that. We'll just say new date. All right, then we're going to return we dot save, and let's get rid of this line. All right, and this will save and also return the version that we are storing. We also need to send back this current version. So for now, we'll just return this dot version model dot find, and we are just going to find one, which will give us this recent object. Okay, so we have pretty much done our version library. I'm going to go to the source app module, and we are going to integrate this nest version module, which we just created. So we'll just say version module. Okay, now if I go ahead and then start our application, I'm going to go to package.json, And here we have a script that we use. So I'll use this npm run start dev. The Webpack is building your sources, and we got a lot of errors. So it says this one is not a module. So we'll go there, we'll save the file. It's building now, and it says the module containing version module. So we'll have to just restart the server. Let's see now. Okay, so another error says if version module is a provider, it is the part of the current version module. So we'll go to version module, and here for Mongo's module for feature, we have this array. So within an array, we need to have this object. We need to specify the name, which is going to be the version.name, and schema would be version schema. Okay, and we also need to add controllers. So let's add a controllers, and in an array, we'll just say version controller and add a comma there. After saving this file, you can see our server is running. We can start testing our API. So I'm going to open Postman, and Postman will help us to send a request to our API. I'm going to click on the new button, request. I'll just use this add version request, and we are going to say add version request to Nest API. We're going to create a collection, and we'll just say version request. Okay, let's click on save to version request, and here we got the first get request. I'm going to use http://local. Let's increase the size actually. That's much better. So local host :3000/. Let's send it, and we should see hello world. Also, I'm going to show you the terminal as well that we're getting. Actually, we're not, because we haven't implemented the logger yet. So let's go and create add version. If I send this, it's going to send us 404. There is no add version there. So what we have here is, if I go to VS Code, I'll go to app module, and we got this version module. And within the version module, we are going to take a look at this controller. Controller has this prefix as version. So we need to use this version/release version. So I'm going to copy this text, and I'm going to change the version, then release version. If I send this request now, it says status 404 cannot get to versions/release version. It says not found. Because we're using this get request, it's supposed to be post request. So if I change it to post request and send that, this time it says status code file vendor internal server error. And if you look at the part, it says part API version is required. So the object that we sent is not correct. So I'm going to take a look at this body, and here we are going to send, first of all, a name, which will be, let's just say, new API, and next API version, and we can say 1.0.0 app version. That's, let's just say, 2.0.0, and we also need created date. All right. So created date can be, just let's just say, just gibberish. Let's send it. That says internal server error. Again, it's saying app version is required, API versions is required, but it doesn't really say about created date. So if you look at our version schema, it says required, but I'm going to change this to false. The reason for that is because if you look at your controller, you are creating a date right here. So you don't really need to send that. All right, so we'll just uncheck this. Let's send the request now. Again, it says some sort of like error. We'll just restart the server because we're not catching a lot of errors, but let's see here. So once you do that, then I'm gonna send this, and again it's an error. It says part name is required. Well, we're passing it, but why it's not doing it? Well, let's take a look at this raw. So raw basically have nothing, so we're gonna do a JSON. I'm going to create a name, and I'm gonna make it string as like API version. Then we're going to use app version, and I'm going to make it string as well. So let's say 1.0.0, and that should be double quotes actually in JSON. So let's change this to double quotes and then API version. That's a 2.0.0. And I'm going to send the request this time. It says unexpected token at JSON this. So something we need to fix, we need to wrap this in double quotes as well. Okay, let's send it. And then you can see we're getting this ID, name, app version, API version, and created date. Now, this data is actually stored in MongoDB. So I'm going to take it to terminal. Now here you see I don't have this nest database. So I'll type Mongo and I'll type show DBS. And this time you'll see this nest. Now I'm going to say use nest, and it's going to switch to that. Then I'm going to use db.collection, and the collection would be version, and I'll just say find. Enter, and you'll see it says show 1.1. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually use this a different application to actually get access to this. So let's go to his code. I'm going to type Mongo, and we're going to say MongoDB for VS Code. Let's install that. Once installation is done, then I'm going to click here, add connection. Connect, and I'm going to type MongoDB .192.168.1.113 nest, enter, and you get to see you have connected to this database, and we have this nest, and I'm gonna see this is the version collection. Click on that, and we got one document. I'm gonna click here, and you'll see there is a version. So if we go to Postman, I'm gonna change this to app version to 5, API version to 7. I'm gonna send the request again, and now if we refresh, let's just move it down a bit. Now if I go ahead and refresh this, we have 2 documents within this collection. So click here, then you got this database. Basically MongoDB is adding these documents now. So again, I will put this code to the GitHub if you want to check it out. Now, this stage, you have a schema, you have the controller, a service to do all your functionality. So yeah, at this stage, we are able to create data in the database using Nest.js. And yeah, we also use very strongly types, so everything is like in the best practice. All the errors that you're gonna find here, please use the catch blocks here and follow the proper TypeScript. Now we also going to use this current version. So if I go ahead and then create a new request. So let's say, I will say current version request, and we are going to copy this bit and then paste it here. Instead of add version, actually it was supposed to be version slash current version. Let me check that with controller, and that is just current. So version current, and then just send it, and you should be able to see the first object that you have. Now you can do some modification here and check by date, and then that will basically give you the current version. But our goal was to actually create an API endpoint which will go and add data to MongoDB. So basically you are creating a new object from the model and then just calling the save function on it. And that's about it. That's it, right? It's so simple. Now, in terms of documentation for MongoDB and Nest.js, I would like to show you. It's a really nice guide here. So here is the original documentation. I would highly recommend to check this Mongo, and then it will basically walk you through about creating a schema, and also will help you to understand what's happening. There's a good resource here as well, but because we wanted to create a separate library and then basically isolate that library within our code. So yeah, I hope you liked this tutorial. If you did, subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Cheers.